Hey, it's Connor, and welcome to the Chronicler. I've been away for a while, just kind of finished up moving. I still have some things to do here and there, but that's kind of why it's been so long between videos. And it's also been a while for me reading this book, The Stone of Farewell, which is what I'll be talking about today. Liked the book quite a bit overall. I'd give it a B rating. My rankings are letter grades, and then S tier is kind of like greatest of all time. So I'd give this a solid B. Enjoyed the book a lot though. Some people think a B might be a bad ranking, but I think B is a pretty damn solid ranking. Um, so this is the second book in Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, which is a fantasy trilogy that's fairly popular. Maybe not as well known today. It seems like a lot of booktubers are trying to get the steam to this series kind of going again, but it influenced a lot of writers like George R. R. Martin, Patrick Rothfuss, and Christopher Paolini. And the reason that I started reading Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn was just I was getting back into reading, and I wanted kind of a fantasy world like Middle Earth that I could just kind of call my fantasy home, something that I could always think about kind of and come back to whenever I just wanted something more comfortable. And for a lot of people, that might be Middle Earth. I haven't read the Lord of the Rings books. I've watched the movies a bunch, but I thought that Austin Ard, which is the world of Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, would be a great place to kind of establish that base for me in the fantasy realm. I've read a few other fantasy series, but this kind of was me actively looking for something that I could establish as some kind of fantasy home base of sorts for me. It's quite an expansive series overall. There's a first trilogy, kind of two intermediate books, and then another trilogy, which Tad Williams, the author, just finished writing last year. So far, the series Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn and the world of Austin Ard is definitely nailing that, where I wanted this own kind of Middle-earth world with a lot of lore, a lot of depth, just historied world, cool characters, interesting locations and races, and it's nailed that so far for me. Starting off with my biggest issue with this book, though, is that out of almost maybe anything I've ever read lately or just in the past, this book suffers from middle book syndrome really badly. Almost every single POV, and there's a lot of POVs and a lot of characters, is traveling. They're traveling from one location to another to kind of set things up for probably the third book. There is some interesting things and events that happen here and there, but so much of it is just a journey, which I don't mind that much because Austin Ard's a cool world. There's a lot of interesting locations and history that you go through, so that's not the worst thing ever, but it did feel like there's so much setup that, like, this character, Simon, our main character, needs to go to the Stone of Farewell. You find that out pretty early on, and it spends, like, the whole book having that process happen. And that's not just Simon, our main character's POV. That's, like, every character is just traveling from one location to the next. Maybe you will have issues with that. Definitely feels like a setup book, but there are still interesting events that happen. Something I definitely have adjusted to with this series also is the way it's written. Tad Williams has great prose, but kind of my issue early on with reading this series was that chapters have multiple POVs in the middle of them. And from what I've read before, usually you'll have a whole chapter dedicated to one character's POV. And this series is third person, but in this series, Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, you're actually jumping between quite a few POVs in chapters, sometimes like up to 3 or 4 maybe. And the way it's done is that there'll be like scene breaks. So there'll be a scene, and then there'll be like a scene break. And if the next scene's the same POV or very soon after, there's just a small little break. But if there's a big jump to like further on in time, quite a bit further on in time, or another POV entirely, there'll kind of be like a symbol in the middle of the page. And that kind of denotes the change. But none of this is ever done through explicitly telling you, who you're jumping to or anything like that. You'll just figure out as you read it. And after reading the first book, I got adjusted to that now for this one entirely. And then also kind of I'm used to the world of Austin Ard, all the characters, the locations. There's a lot of names and locations to juggle around in your head here. So I'm used to all that now and generally know the geography and the races of the land, so it's easier for me to read this at a quicker pace than it was for the first book. But both of these books, The Dragonbone Chair and The Stone of Farewell, are very slow paced in my opinion. You take your time with them. That's at least how I have been reading them, taking my time and enjoying them slowly. And the world's just great, so I don't mind taking my time going through this long adventure. This book did do a good job of kind of endearing me to more of the cast of characters. Like I said, it's a pretty big cast of characters. Probably my least favorite POV, actually, maybe second to last favorite, but was Simon, the main character of the trilogy. And he's still fine, but he's definitely coming of age, so some might find him kind of annoying. The Scythi, who are kind of like the elven race here, refer to Simon as a man-child. And he's definitely that. He's definitely a man-child. He's maturing, but he's not quite all the way there yet. But you can definitely tell that he's on his way to growing up as he scolds himself and he recognizes his own flaws with impatience and such. And it is paving the way for his manhood, which is a fun journey to see. It's, very classic fantasy coming-of-age story here. Something that was unexpected for me that I liked a lot was actually the audiobook. I probably listened to over half of this one using the audiobook, and I believe it's narrated by Andrew Wincott, and I really enjoyed it overall. I think he did a great job with the voices across the whole cast. Some of like the elven races and such, he definitely has kind of unique accents for. So yeah, that's about all my spoiler-free thoughts. I'm looking forward to jumping to Green Angel Tower, which is the last book in Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. That book is absolutely massive. It is about 550,000 words long, which is about 10% longer, I think, than even Wind and Truth, the longest Stormlight Archive book. So that's going to be an absolute tome to get through. I'm taking a small break, and I'm reading The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett, just to give myself a little bit of a breather in between The Stone of Farewell and that. But the way that all the threads started to come together at the end of the Stone of Farewell made me really excited to jump in to Green Angel Tower, and I've started caring for these characters a lot more. So I definitely want to see their journeys end in, at least for this part of the Ostenard saga in that next book. That's about all for now, guys. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, subscribe, and have a good one. Now time for just a few spoilers for anybody that wants to stick around a bit longer. One thing was that there's actually some pretty dark stuff in this book. For instance, Miriamel, the princess, the daughter of King Elias, she gets taken advantage of in some pretty nasty ways near the end of the book, and she's in a really rough spot. So I wasn't expecting what really happened there. And then also, kind of in the middle of the book, maybe a little bit past the middle, there's an instance where there's this kind of witch where she has got a bunch of like kids that she's watching over, a bunch of orphans, and seemingly all the kids die. That's what it seemed like to me, at least. And one of the characters, Sludig, he's like, damn, I hope all those kids died because they're little devils. So I thought that was kind of funny how dark it did get there for a while, and how it was just, yeah, maybe all those kids did get wiped out. Also, with, I don't remember his exact name right now, Duke Isorn? The Duke of the Rimmersmen. He's been on this whole quest to find Miriamel, but as he's going through the lands, he actually stumbles upon like his old master, Sir Camaris, who is like one of the greatest fighters of all time. He's the wielder of one of these legendary swords, the 3 legendary swords. I believe Thorn is his sword, and he's just like this crazy old man now that was like, you think he's just some psycho, some doorman, some really old coot that works for this tavern. And the scene where the Duke kind of runs into him again, he's like, Sir Camaris is like fun, like he's having fun chasing kids around. The kids are having fun. And the Duke sees him and he just like collapses. And he's like, oh my God. Like people are like, dude, are you okay? And the Duke's just like, Sir Camaris? What? And this whole trilogy so far, you've been built up that this dude is like the greatest fighter. So it's pretty cool when that happened. And that's kind of what I was talking about, like faith being rewarded. The Duke's faith was kind of rewarded in that way. He wasn't really questioning his faith as much, but it was pretty fun just to see that random encounter. And that's actually a trope I like a lot, where you have this legendary figure and everybody thinks they're either dead or, they don't know what happened to them. And then they reappear and they're just some old crazy person now. And I don't know where it's going to go from there. Hopefully he can convince Sir Camaris to come and help them out and fight Elias, but who knows? Camaris is really old now, and we'll see how that goes. Some other things, I really like Joshua and Dionarth's POV. I think that was some of my favorite stuff in this book, was following those characters and that little band around. Basically, this whole book, like I said, people are traveling a lot. Joshua's party is literally like in escape mode from Elias. At the end of the first book, they left Nagelmund, which is like that was his city, and Joshua sieged it, Elias sieged it, and they've just been on the run since then. And they finally got to the Stone of Farewell, but there were some encounters that were pretty tough for the crew along the way there, and they lost a lot of people. But I definitely like Joshua's character a lot now, and Dionorth, and even like Vorsheva. All those characters, I got to know them quite a bit better here. So it was a good time with all of them. Like I said earlier, kind of Simon and Benabik and Sludig, all that stuff was okay. It was cool seeing more of the trolls, but Simon, I need to warm up to him more. I like Simon, but he's definitely kind of that bratty man-child still. And we lost Haston, who was one of that party too. And it was sad because I started listening to the audiobook and I'm like, wow, the narrator's voice for Haston is like the best voice in the entire thing. And then Haston got killed off. So it's like, oh, damn it. Can't hear him use that voice anymore. And then also King Elias. It was great seeing King Elias descend further into madness. And then you have Gothwolf and Rachel the dragon. Rachel being kind of like Simon's mom and like the master housemaid. They're kind of conspiring inside of the Hayholt, which is, the castle in Austin Ard, like the home for the Erkenlanders, the capital, if you will. And Rachel actually goes and tries to kill like Priorides, which is like the alchemist, the guy that's kind of been seeming driving the king mad. And that was really unexpected, but I like that development a lot. She's doing some spring cleaning in the castle, as she's saying. And then Gothwolf, like the most faithful guy, the right hand of King Elias, is like, I can't be with the king anymore. The king has gone absolutely fucking batshit. And Elias even like uses the sword on Gothwolf to show him like the visions of what he sees as coming. I wonder if Elias is gonna like straight up transform into Inaluki, like the Storm King, if he's gonna go through some like metamorphosis, if the sword is like gonna corrupt him so much. So that's all really interesting to see also. And just like he's going absolutely crazy. And it's cool too to see that like you kind of think Priorides in the first book is just totally manipulating him. But you see that Elias does, like, he thinks he's using Priorides, and he thinks he knows more now that he's got the sword and can see so much. Priorides is just a means to an end. But obviously Priorides thinks that Elias is probably just the same thing, a means to an end. So, really great to see all that progression. Yeah, like the book overall. We'll see how I feel as the time goes on. I don't think I'll get any colder towards the book. I honestly might feel even better about it a couple months from now and maybe bump the rating up to like a B+ at the end of the year. We'll have to see how To Green Angel Tower takes a lot of these plot threads and runs with them. But that's really all I want to talk about in the spoiler section here. I actually talked about more than I thought I would, and it was easier to actually get through this spoiler part than it was the non-spoiler part. But sometimes that's just how things go. My little dog here, he ruined my girlfriend and I's sleep completely last night. He's like adjusting to our new place still. And man, he just could not find somewhere to get comfortable. So he just kept us up he woke me up like 5 times last night and was driving me nuts. But what are you going to do about pets? You got to love them, right? All right, well, that's it for now. So thanks for watching, y'all. Have a good one.